Hello, I'm Craig Constantine. Are you passionate about creating amazing podcasts? Terrific. You are in the right place. Welcome to Pod Talk, short conversations with podcast creators that are not just about podcasting, because I like to take the scenic route. My guest today is Cassian Bellino. Welcome, Cassian. How are you this morning?
I'm doing so well, Craig. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for taking, I always call it the generous leap, which comes from Seth Godin terminology. Thank you for taking the generous leap of showing up for talking to me. Your podcast, I'm just going to get this out of the way because I'm afraid to say it because I keep screwing up the words. Your podcast is called Biblically Speaking.
Yes,
And first of all, I do this all the time, 60 episodes. I think you just published an episode today. Mad
I
props.
did.
You're doing this all
Yes.
by yourself. So I always want to say to other independent podcasters, that's awesome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So the basic story is that you had your own, I'm going to even say doubts. You had your own questions, and then you
Yeah.
kind of made a podcast as a way to I'm just going to start asking questions of people who have actual answers and go from
Yeah.
there. To tell me about, most people don't do that, Cassian. Most people would just suffer with questions and doubts. How did you, what was the catalyst? How did you make that transition from, I don't know, to I'm hitting record?
I think it comes from upbringing and my mother was a matriarch, but she always kind of grounded us in faith. And I think just living authentically was always important to me. And it really just kind of came to a head when I was out on my own trying to be a Christian woman. And I just couldn't, I had that cognitive dissonance of well, I want to be a Christian woman and I want to believe in this faith that I've been raised in. It wasn't like it was new to me, but I loved my sin and I loved sinning and I loved drugs and drinking and sex. I was horrible.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, it's all
This
good.
is X-rated. No. And it was just okay, I know I should be this, but I logically couldn't get on board. And I hear that a lot with my friends right now of I don't want to walk in blind faith. I don't believe blind faith. And I can't logically, as a logic XYZ person, believe in God. And I completely resonate with that person because I wanted inherently to desire God, but it really was Jesus, show me how cool you actually are. Cause I'm into the concept of being a Christian, but when I really play out what I think it is, it looks very cringy and weird. So I just have a lot of questions. And if I can logically understand how and why you're so amazing just to my simple questions, then there's no then it's I will objectively believe in you rather than subjectively because I have to, but because I want to. And so I think it was that plus the encouragement of my community. And
Mm.
I just have always been, I'm the baby. I ask for what I want. I'm very bold and saying I need something. And it originated in 2018 where I just out loud said, gosh, I wish there was a podcast that just a smart person and a funny person discussed the Bible. And it wasn't a sermon and it wasn't a lecture. It was just straight answers, but humorous. So it was fun to listen to. And my friend laughed and she's like, we should do that. And I'm like, we're idiots. We should not do that. And so then
That's a terrible idea.
which
That's
one
a
will
very
I be
helpful
and you
friend.
be? And so then it was okay, surely there's a podcast out there. And it was a very loose, okay, I'll read this book. Okay, I'll listen to this YouTube video. Okay, I'll join
Mm.
this academic based Bible study. Okay, I'll join this Bible study. And it was never enough. And I had these expectations of basically seminary in a Bible study. And nobody was qualified to lead a seminary level Bible study. And I had no interest in going to
Right.
seminary. And so when I came out to Hawaii, I still had that on my heart of gosh, I still haven't found that. And my sister, and this is where I think the supernatural comes in, my sister, who's just been a witness to my life, was well, maybe you're supposed to create it. And I don't think I would have done this had she not encouraged me in that way. And so when she brought it up, I couldn't shake it. And I initially was no, 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 no. Did you see me in college? Do you know the photos that are out there? Me representing faith, I misspeak all the time. I had no sense of public speaking. I had so much anxiety to even speak at a work meeting, me. And so I kind of gave God every reason, was well, I can't do it because of this reason, and then he solved it. I can't do it because of this reason, and then he solved it. Until I had this conversation with a pastor telling him oh yeah, I have this loose idea, I don't know, I'm just feeling it out. And he's like, hey Cass, at this point, God has told you to do this, that you will be disobedient if
If
you
you
don't.
don't. Ship
I
it,
was like,
right?
don't say that I still have a choice. He's like, not really. And
Mm.
so I did it, and it was just, there was like no vision at all for what it could become. And I still, to this day, I mean, we'll get into like the goals of this podcast, but no vision. The fact that it went viral in 75 days was God. The fact that there's 100,000 followers is all God's grace. Like, it's living proof of like an anointment currently. And like, God can take that away at any point, but like, this is God's doing, not mine. So I'm just like glad that I was able to like facilitate it and be a part of it.
You've got, I'm a nerd. I was counting and I think I lost count of like seven. You've got like seven really brilliant guide stars that you touched on there. Like I had
What?
a champion, your sister. I had a mentor, a pastor at some point. I had an idea that was a gift to me. I had, what was the other one that I thought of? Passion. Yeah, a little bit of passion. Um, I had, we often in podcast circles talk about niching down. You have a really clear, this is who this is for. It's for people like me who have these, like, I think that's five. And a lot of times podcasters, like people like me, we talk about those things. But it's really nice to see somebody just like throw down their story and basically do a whirlwind tour of like how to do it right. You didn't do any of the stuff right according to the books. You know, like gotta have a launch day, and you gotta have a thing, you gotta have a promo, you gotta have a funnel, you gotta have a marketing. And you were
Oh,
like,
wow.
no, I got this as like in the DNA. So I just kind of wanted this. It's called signposting. I just want to
Wow.
signpost all the. You went buy a whole bunch of things, and I was just like,
Whoa.
well, yes, no kidding that it worked out great. That's awesome.
What?
Uh,
I
sorry.
didn't even know. I mean, this is so encouraging because I like literally today I was like, what do I do? Like, I'm like hitting a wall right now. And like creatively, I don't really work unless like I have the juice. And right these last couple of days, I
Oh
don't have the
yeah.
juice. Like, that's why I just spent 4 hours building this cabinet. And I'm like, I should be working on my podcast every single day. I should be
Yes.
improving my newsletter. I should be building this new community because I have like things I want to do, but like my passion's not in it. So I'll wait when I have enough juice. And thank you for just pointing out things that I've done well because
I think the
it feels
things
like
that
a
you're
guess and check.
resisting, the things you're resisting are the things you should skip. Um, Maybe not the, yeah, I mean, it's something you're resisting the cabinet. Maybe don't skip the cabinet. I was just today listening to somebody else's show, and I'll just name drop because the show is awesome. It's called The Hansel and Gretel Code, as in the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel,
Okay.
done by a guy named Curtis Cates. I was just listening to, I think it's episode 32, and a lot of the threads that run through that whole show is him talking about intuition. And I'm listening to you talk, and maybe it's because my intuition feelers are out today, but I was just like, holy Toledo, were you paying attention to your intuition? You were like logic schmogic. Not that I'm saying that you ignored that, but it's just like instead of following the thing that had felt like it had been flustering you, you went, I don't know, I feel like I really should do this thing over here, which is like
That's
intuitive.
insane that you say that because I can't tell you like how much when someone gives me an idea currently of like, oh, like right now, it's like, well, maybe you should create a new niche for this group of people. I'm like, the paperwork and the funnels and the
Uh-huh.
SEO, like now those things pop up for me. Whereas like, I think also the stakes were so low. Like, I think now I kind of feel a responsibility over the following that I've
Yeah, but
built,
the
which
stakes
like,
aren't any higher, are they? Like, it's not like if you didn't
no.
ship episode 61, people would come knocking on your door. Like, I do encourage people, don't ghost your listeners, put out a final episode like, I'm
But for
stopping or
sure.
whatever.
No,
Uh,
I mean, yeah, I just was like, I think it's like when you travel. Like, I'm gonna go to a country to try this one meal. Whatever happens between me and that time I get to trying that meal, gravy. And I feel
Bonus.
like it was the same thing for the podcast of like, I'm gonna do the podcast and then I'll post clips of the podcast on Instagram. That was it. And then everything else just eventually came. And I did that for a year. That's it. And then just in the last 7 months, I did the funnels, the
Yeah.
website, the cross, like, the business development,
Merch.
the
Yeah.
merch,
I'm
all
not
the
even going to tell
things.
people, wait, there's merch? Yeah. You have to go to our website. It's
The
Bib
merch is
Speaking, BIB speaking.com. I wrote it down.
bibspeak.com.
Oh, Bib
It's trying to
Speak.
make it, but I'm sure that if you typed in biblically speaking podcast, it'll come up. I hope the guy I paid to do my SEO better have done his job.
So shots fired. Um, but even the design of the website and the merchandise that you've done, it doesn't feel heavy handed. It doesn't feel heavy handed. Like I went
Oh,
to the
what do you
site and I'm
mean?
like, well, sometimes I go to sites I've done a couple of these. I go to sites and it's like, whoa, this website has everything. There's an email list and there's like courses and there's things. And like you have a few things that seem like they're probably, I'm going to assume, intentionally chosen. I liked, you have, I don't know if you call it books or pamphlets. There's a couple of for
Guides.
purchase things, guides. Yes. You have a few guides and they're clearly for your audience. And I can just see like your audience slapping off their headphones and going, shop and take my money. Like that, they want those things. Do you know that Fry that's from Futurama? There's a Fry, the character, it's a meme. Like somebody offered him something and he's just like, stop talking and take my money, like, but everything that you have on the site felt like you knew who it was for, the whole project. So I know you didn't imagine that from day one, but
Definitely not. No, none of this. Like, that's the point. Is like all of this is like 7 months old and a lot of failure. Like, even right now, I'm like, okay, this, what I thought was going to work 6 months ago, I'm going to actually
mm.
close it down because it didn't pan out. But I learned so much and I had to do it and I had
Oh,
to
give me an
fail.
example. Something that you're shutting down that you learned something from.
Oh my gosh, so much. So when I started this, I was in panic mode because I just been laid off. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use my layoff to like just monetize my podcast. And if I don't monetize it, I'll go back to what I was doing before, like fail proof. Full of anxiety though. Like it was not a peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
foolproof, fail proof type of plan. Like full of anxiety the whole time. But I instead, like I should have naturally followed the demand and been like, oh, people are asking for homeschooling materials. Let's just create that. Instead, I was like, let's create anything anybody's ever imagined, and then I'll see which one sells the most and can't. I was horrible. And like, that was a mistake. But I had to. Like, my emotions wouldn't have settled had I tried the logical thing. I had to
Mm.
do the illogical thing. It is what it is. I wouldn't even say I wasted money, even though it didn't work, because it got me here. And now I'm much more relaxed and I enjoy it and I'm focused. Like, okay, I know what it feels like to do overcompensating things. So now it feels better
Mm.
to do one at a time. And I didn't feel that way before. But I panicked, so I got a coach. I went on Intro, which was it's a place where you can go and like talk to CEOs for like 15 minutes. And I
Mm.
just went to Intro. It's an app, and I put in podcasting. I bought time with the cheapest guy. I think it was like $80 for like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Like
I'd
in
recommend the second cheapest guy. Maybe not the literal bottom of the barrel, but okay, go ahead.
He was awesome. I ended up hiring him. Like he gave me 15 minutes and they gave me an hour. Like we kept talking. He was like, why don't you just like, I offered this like consulting for 3 months. It was 1,500 for 3 months. And he was like my podcast coach. And I just needed someone to handhold, like doing this alone. I had to really get over the like, I should know how to do this alone. It's like, no, like I have to actively seek coaches and seek
Mm.
mentors. Like I don't have podcasters around me.
And you need that other mind to bounce things off of. You need somebody else. It's crazy to just talk to the wall. Ask me how
A
I know
thousand
that.
percent. And this guy, David Wasicki, I mean, hire him. He's phenomenal. But he not only like told me how to refine like my brand and my hook and my pitch and like what to cut out and what to keep, but he also like emotionally kept me level when I was like, I want to bail. I want to bail. I want to
Mm.
quit. I don't want to do this anymore. It's not working. Like he kept me there. But I also went to school because I was like, okay, I'm going to monetize a community because that's what the kids are doing. That's what we need. That's how we're going to make money. And school was
The
brand
kids are doing.
new. School was like brand new, and then this guy's like just happened to reach out and he was like on Instagram was like, well, I'll build your school community. I have a school community for building school communities. And I was like, it's a gift from God. Perfect. Okay. So I paid him $1,000 a month to for 3 months to build a school community, and that taught me about go high level, that taught me about courses, that forced me to create a bunch of guides. It showed me about testimonial.to. Like it opened my eyes to what it's like, what a community would be. Built that up, charged, and then no one bought, so then I made it free, and then 500 people joined. Nobody does anything with it now, so I kind of want to close it down. But because of that, it led me to okay, this is way too expensive. I just need someone to kind of like facilitate editing, so I don't work with them anymore. Instead, I got outsourced doers, and I got a
Mm.
doer, which is like a VA. And then I stopped doing that because it built me a funnel, and I was like, cool, I just needed the funnel. I don't actually need you every single day. Um, but then
Automating
that
yourself out
funnel,
of a job.
but because I like knew go high level, from the community, even though I don't even use that school community anymore. When I built a funnel with my VA through outsourced doers, we could leverage Go High Level, and then we could leverage the lead magnet, because then somebody else reached out to me over Instagram and was like, do you have email marketing down? And I was like, oh, disgusting. I don't even want to think about that. And he's like, cool, I'll handle your email marketing for like $40 a month through my Go High Level. So everything I'd learned on Go High Level from the beginning, I transferred to his account. And now I have 1,500 email subscribers. I've got an email funnel. I've got like all these tools that like I needed to go through the community first. Had this guy had just cold outreach to me, I would have been so unfamiliar with Go High Level. I would have said no.
Yeah, that's
Had I
not
like,
me.
he wouldn't have, and this guy wouldn't have been able to build me the lead funnel that my VA built for me. And so, although I'm not thriving in my school community, although I'm not like actively selling all the guides, I needed each part of these things, because now as I'm like, this is what I want to do next. I have like, what I want to do next is sponsorships, which I kind of joke. I'm like, I did the longest road possible home.
Back to
Of
the most obvious idea.
the most obvious idea for anybody with 100,000 followers is sponsorships. Why was that my last option? Why did I pivot towards a direction that like made no sense, but I wouldn't have known that had I seen that it didn't make sense. And so now when I go to sponsors, I can say, I have an email subscription list. I have a lead funnel list. I have I have all these things already built. Let's leverage them. And so who knows, maybe in like 3 months, I'll be like, and sponsorships were a total fail. Like who knows? But like, this is the game. This is what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I'm going through like a little bit of an emotional lull, but I'm giving myself grace that like for 7 months, I haven't had an emotional lull. So like, it's okay. I'm allowed to have this.
Yeah, don't expect perfect uniformity. Although I always joke, boy, I wish I could take the top off, let's get top 10% off of my highs and just flip it over and stick it in the pothole that is the bottom would be great. I'd like a little more modulation. So I obviously, like we've talked, we had a pre-call and we've talked a little bit and I've done some homework. So obviously I'm asking you questions which are specifically like, I know, not that I know exactly, but I know what to ask. But I still think it's great for people to hear, oh, okay, it's not just me. Like anybody listening is going to go, oh yeah, me too. Like I don't know what to do next. And I think the answer is just pick something, follow your heart, follow your intuition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you
It's
have
really
really
like,
deep pockets. But
which like that helps so
yeah.
much. Yeah, I wish I would have gone in a more intuitive direction. Like I kind of tried everything because I wanted to, but I think a smarter person probably would have been like, oh, a lot of people are asking for this, then I'll just focus on that. Just do the one at a time. I've got a podcast, I do it well, let's add one more thing and then do that well. And I've done too much all at once. And I think what also helped is just like having friends that like I feel like I owe them money because of like how much they have talked me off the
You're
cliff.
supposed to buy the drinks. You're supposed to buy the drinks.
And I remember I was telling my friend, I'm like, I'm so afraid to launch because I'm afraid it's going to be bad. And she was like, it will be bad. It's your first iteration. Like,
Yes.
bank on it being
Okay,
bad. And
you
I
owe
was
that
like,
friend money. Yeah,
okay,
you owe that
it
friend
will be.
money.
And it was horrible. It was trash. And now I learned from it.
Yeah. Yeah, turn signal. Your guests that you bring on the show, you have a particular specific, like in other words, you're only bringing on people who have PhDs who are deeply knowledgeable about the topics. People are like, man, you are turning left, Craig. So you're basically, you have a phrase somewhere. It's like the point of this podcast is because you can't raise your hand in church, which is a
Yeah.
perfect visual. And you're asking questions of scholars who actually know the answers. And what I wanted to ask, the reason I'm like turn signal, turning left, do you find like, have any of them ever actually pushed back or actually been like not so receptive to the way that you do this, or do you find that they're always just delighted to have the chance to talk about the thing they're passionate about? See what I'm looking for is like, any surprises in that vein?
Well, I
Maybe
think
without
like,
naming names.
no. I think it's important because like I had to figure this out as I did it of like having pre-calls helps, sending
Mm.
notes ahead of time helps. And so by the time you get to the call, everyone knows their quote unquote part or their role. And so there's been a couple times that I get on calls with people and like basically my process is I send an email, I find any college and like this is like I would find literally like the people that I've gotten on, I didn't know they were a big deal until like the day we recorded. And I was like, I was just emailing literally
Right.
whoever. whoever had a PhD. And then they said yes. And I'm like, oh, this is like, you were on Tucker Carlson last week. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Oops.
whoops. But no, I find somebody, since they're all professors, their emails are public because they're on the school. So, you know, really helped with finding my guests. And then none of
Mhm.
them are like celebrities usually. So they're pretty easy. Like they're people with tenure, you know, and like decades of like professor and like teaching and like all these things. So I reach out, we get an email, I set up a 30-minute call. On the call, I basically do two things. I tell them what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, and why. And then I'm like, yeah, you know, like this is my spiel, and you know, because this is how I was raised and this is where I lack. And so I basically want you to come on, and it's like we're at dinner and I'm just asking you about work and that's it. Like, don't worry. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So what do you want to talk about? And then we basically like, I'm taking notes throughout the call, and I'm like, okay, they want to talk about like, I just did a call last week, and it was like the purpose of blood and sacrifice in the Old Testament. And he's like, I'm like, what do you like to talk about? What do you feel like you love talking about, or you feel like not enough people are talking about it? Because like, of course, I have preferences, but if they don't know how, like, if they don't know this topic, I'm not going to force them. Like, I want them to be, I want it to be their, you know, what is it,
Yeah, you
SME?
want to do a rise naturally.
Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, you know, we should talk about blood. And I was like, what? Yeah, like, I don't, what do you mean? And he's like, how blood is the crux of the Old Testament and sacrifice. And that's the most important part of the Bible. And I was like, okay, pop off. Like, let's go. And so then and so I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm thinking for the show. We'll talk about this, then this. And he's like, okay. And I was like, all right, what's going to happen next is we're going to talk on the state a week before. I'm going to send you notes for you to approve and review. And then after we record, or 30 minutes before we record, I'll send you the link. And then 2 weeks after, it'll go live and I'll send you the links. So I walk them through the entire life cycle, and they really appreciate that. So by the time that, you know, we get to the moment of calling, there's a pretty like, hey, in case we like, I want this to be a conversation, but if we forget, I'll look at my notes, and not a big deal, kind of like what you and I have done here. But I feel like the only person that I've spoken to that I was like, what is going on live air is I brought a guy on, and I wanted to talk about um, divine hiddenness. And this was somebody who was like quieter. And I was like, divine hiddenness, what is that? Like, I didn't know enough about it to really like bring him back into the topic.
Hmm.
And so he would talk about something, and I'm like, is this going into the right direction? I don't know. And I was also confused because like we did the pre-call, we did the notes. Like I thought, and I was kind of like, hey, you're driving. Like I don't actually know this topic very well, but like it's important enough for us to talk about, you know, like whatever. And we ended up talking about something completely different. And I was just like, okay, so we're going to retitle this episode something else, and that'll
Yeah.
be it. And, you know, I really didn't like that episode. I was really annoyed. And I was like, I'm never bringing that guy back on. And then recently somebody was like DMing me, like, what do I do? Because it ended up being like a conversation about like how to, like, what is the response that Christians should have to atheist arguments? Like, what are common atheist arguments, and what is a Christian way to respond? And that's kind of what it became. And I thought it was such like a
Hmm.
quote unquote waste of an episode. But then recently someone was DMing me like, I don't know what to do with this. My sister has cancer. How the heck am I supposed to believe in God? Like, and it was this like, I'm like, I have just the episode for you. And it was like, that's why. That's why I needed to have this episode, because it was for this person and maybe many others, but like, that's why.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have said elsewhere in episodes that I don't know, like 200 episodes ago, I decided I was going to stop self-judging the work. Like I get to the end of the show, and I'm like, it was, yeah, I'm
Mm,
making
mm, mm,
hand
mm.
gestures. It's good. It was great. I think it was awesome. I'm not sure. And I've decided I actually have no expletive clue how good any of the episodes are. I mean, I can listen back and go, oh my God, Craig, you were a doofus on that one, or you're being a weirdo. That I can totally, understand. But like the content of the show and the story you're telling me just like totally validates this. I have no clue. And I have
Yeah.
had episodes that I thought were like, that was kind of the stinker. That's the
Hmm.
regression that pulls the mean down. I've had people tell me that was their favorite one. I was like, well, am I so glad I hit publish on that one, because I'm glad you loved it. So I think there's another
Yeah.
takeaway in there about I mean, if you get one that really sucks, it's like, yeah, the cat knocked the coffee over and we had it as like, they're disasters, or you don't
Yeah.
get the audio files. um
Yeah.
but I really feel like the process that you've created, and everybody has processes. The process you've created, it kind of tees the whole thing up. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
okay, and then we're going to hit record, and I don't want to say it and jinx it, but how could it possibly go totally wrong?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm saying, yeah, people trust your processes, and yeah, mad
It's
props.
never too soon. I just recorded last week with like a beloved repeat guest, and it was like a really like a topic that I've been like meaning to talk up to somebody about. So I'm like genuinely excited. And he was in a Starbucks, and we kept getting frozen, and so we only got
You're
like
like, dude, we're taking a mulligan. Yeah,
I was like, dude, like I gotta go at the hour. Like we can't, piece this together. So we're gonna do like a quote unquote part two, but it might just be two separate 20-minute versions into
yeah.
one. And I'm like, whatever. Like this is the end of me. But it's it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, it might be a train wreck, but I'm still gonna go for it. Like the
Mm.
stakes are not that high. If I was maybe Joe Rogan or Alex Cooper, then it'd be like just redo it. But like this is so fun, and I feel like somebody, I think it was Alex Hermosi, was like, "You're not actually cancelable. Like there's actually no stakes for messing up because it was like Jake and Logan Paul had." 1 million subscribers when they did the Japanese suicide forest video, and then they got canceled for that because they were filming literal dead bodies in the forest, and people were like, so disrespectful, you can't do that. Canceled. Lost 1 million. I'm at 100,000. 1 million gone. And they came back. They have
Yeah.
10 million now. So there's actually no too, like, the height's never too high.
Yeah, the self-assigned, no, the guilt, the self-assigned guilt of like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be doing better.
Oh, just go for it. Just
Yeah,
go for it, even if it's bad and it ruins you. Like the stakes aren't that high.
yeah, I love some of the very first like literally the very first episodes. I occasionally get those out and be like, oh, cringe, oh, awkward, but like I still like them because the guests are themselves, and all the work that I
Yeah.
do in podcasting, I've
Yeah.
really for me is about the guests. So,
Hmm. No, you're a
uh,
great interviewer.
thank you. I don't do well with compliments.
Oh, sorry, you're doing horrible.
Thank you. How much better? um, Another. I mean, I should have like an audio thing so I can signal to the listeners. And a left turn. Um, we were talking weeks ago about maybe you're thinking about a change, like maybe actually moving, but in the context of pod. I mean, you can tell me where you're moving to if you want, but maybe in the context more of podcasting. Um, it sure sounds like you're still a whole 100% jazzed and energized about doing the thing, but like what's going on with maybe you're thinking of taking a pause or punting the whole thing or changing the DNA of the show, or what's coming up for you?
Yeah, we shall see. I feel like the biggest thing that I've heard is like when you have a goal, it's in the distance, and how you get there is going to change. And I always had like a very, very linear view of like, well, this podcast will take off, and then it will become sponsored, and then it'll have funding, and then it'll become this like mentorship community where like
I'm gonna strut
mentors.
off into the sunset.
I'll become king of the universe, whatever, queen of the universe. No, and so now it's like, okay, I feel like I have a flow, everything is good. Like I'm booked out until November and it's only June. Like, okay, so we have guests, we have a marketing funnel. Maybe we'll do sponsorships. Maybe we'll just do donations. Maybe we'll stop using this service. Maybe we won't. Like that's always kind of like the ebb and flow of every week, I feel. But like the long term is like, okay, people really want um, episodes where there's multiple people on it, or like multiple people weighing
Mm,
in on the same topic. That's going to be a lot more coordination, a lot more editing. Maybe that's like a once a month thing next year. So that's like the current idea that I have. And then from like a physically moving standpoint is I was debating moving to Austin, San Francisco, LA, or New York just to be around people that are in
holy,
podcasting.
talk about three different places. That's like a triangle. It's nothing in common.
I just want to like bump into podcasters because like how easy it is to level up when you're around people that are like, oh, I actually have something you can come to, or I have like a person you could talk to. Like that doesn't happen in Honolulu. That's just not, we're not like a media city. Like it's just not what people do up here.
Mm,
And so I was like, I have to physically move, but I think I might stay. I might have like tapped into a community. I'm not gonna like say it because I don't want to jinx it, but I may have like tapped into a community here that would like also offer that like equal amount of networking. And if not, then I'll go to Austin and just like sweep the floors of a podcasting office and just like be bumping shoulders with those people. Because I think the biggest thing that came out of this like unemployment season of like, okay, I kind of was in like in the tech world, I was in sustainability, I was remote, and now I found this newfound love of podcasting. What do I have to do to get better at it? If I have to move, so be it. But I might not have to. We shall see what happens
Mm.
next. But I think it's exciting to find something that you're good at and that you love, and to just like follow that thread. And maybe this little thread here will take me eventually to that community where there's mentors and pairings with new believers and old believers that can support each other. Because if you think about it right now, like any new believer is given a mentor, but it's usually like somebody a couple years older than them, like a Bible study leader, or it's somebody that's pretty unrelatable to them. And I just want to build this community of people, kind of like AA, where you get a sponsor of like, I was in your shoes once and this is what helped me. And I have
Mm.
no need to judge you. I don't get points if you do
I
well or
don't work on
don't do
commission.
well. Yeah, like I'm just here to hear you out. And it makes me think of like college when I was like sinning up the yin yang. I was horrible. And then I was paired up with this girl who was like maybe 5 years older than me. And like whenever I did something bad, she would use kind of like, she wasn't trying to, but it just came off as guilt. And I'm like, well, this isn't helping. So I need someone that can be like, yeah, I totally understand what you're doing. This is how I can help you. So like that goal is so far away. However we get there, we get there. Oops, sorry. Yeah, we'll see what happens next.
Mm. Uh, People who listen often know that when I pause, it's not because I'm out of things to ask. What's Oh, there's so many. I totally want to do the. What are some misconceptions about the Bible? I want. We have to get to that. Just like off,
Okay.
not like it's a total exam. You have to answer them all, but like, what are some things that come to mind that are misconceptions about the Bible? Maybe things that really surprised you, based on your journey of the podcast, or just anything that comes to mind.
I think that there is like a lot of villains when it comes to Christianity, and it's not anybody's fault. It's not even the church's fault, even though they play a role. I think we as Christians, when we go on this walk to understand our creator and the world that we live in, is there's an enemy very much so that's active and alive. And so when we have these like things that take us away from God, it all is the same enemy. We just see it differently. So it's like, well, the church is bad because they shamed me and they wouldn't let my gay sister in, or they wouldn't let me in because I was gay. It's like the church is wrong. It's like, well, the church is a bunch of people. Like, I didn't give my life to the church. I gave my life to Christ, you know? So that is a very valid experience that from people like in a fallen world that's understood. So all that to say, I think that in Christianity, there's almost like a spectrum of like, if it feels good, it's from God. If it don't, it's from if it doesn't feel good, it's from the enemy. Or the other end of the spectrum is very hyper legalistic, where it's like you need to follow it to a T or you're screwed. There is no margin for error. Um, I think that's like a pretty common thing of like, what kind of church like do you go to? You know, I want to say like the super strict one or not, but I think the biggest thing that have just like come to me that I was like, oh, whoa, like how is nobody talking about this was like it underliningly, it's okay to not know your faith. If you say you're a Christian, you've done all the work. You're going to heaven because you got baptized and you go to church on Sunday and you identify as a Christian, so you're good to go. Who is Abigail? Oh, I don't know that. Okay, well, why not? You know, like why don't you know the thing that you gave your life to? Like, do you know what a sanctification gap is? Okay, maybe knowing that would help, but not knowing it and thinking it's okay, thinking ignorance is like okay, I think that's the enemy being like, you don't have to know your faith, you already gave your life to Christ, you don't have to go any further.
Here,
Or
have a drink.
oh,
Yeah.
don't, yeah, don't ask that question because it might bring you away from faith. Don't ask, why does God let babies die? That answer might ruin your faith, so let's just not ask it. um what are other things? Oh, it's so uncool to study your faith. What is that? Jesus for nuns? How lame. And I feel like I went on this journey of like, I went into this like still sinning, went into this going out every weekend. I'm so sorry if you can hear the siren. I
It's
live
fine.
right next to a fire station. And I went on this journey and I was like, who told me I didn't have to understand my faith? Like, and it wasn't even like someone said it. It's just nobody was actually asking questions. And so we all just normalized not asking questions
Not
about our faith.
asking questions.
We would just go to church and I think everyone's like, okay, now turn to Isaiah. And I'm like, who's Isaiah? And I should know this. I gave my life to it, but like I didn't. And it's not like anybody I knew could like break down the timeline or the time period or where on a map he was located or who was ruling at the time. And so it was like, oh, it's okay to not know your faith. The only people that know their faith though are scholars. Like, what? Is that
Right?
really the only option? And so then it's like I would sit down with my friend and she'd be like, well, why does God let this happen? Why does God let this happen? And you get that fear of like, I don't know. And so if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to bring her further away from Christ rather than closer. And I personally have just seen like firsthand, I can ask any question to the creator. He has a reason for it. And that actually, he looks forward to me saying, this doesn't make sense. And I feel like on the most personal level, I was like, God, like, I was like just in a relationship. I was struggling with sexual immorality, sexual sin. And I was like, feels great. But God doesn't like that. Like, God, I don't want to like have this shame between you and I don't want to like not do this because I feel like you hate me. I want to not do this because I don't want to do this either. So if you don't like this, show me why you don't like this. Cause then if it's logical, like then I'll also not like it. And I think it was like that heart posture of like, I trust that you know way more than me, God. And you don't think this is good, but I think it's good. And I'm an idiot. So like, you tell me, why is this bad? And like, I'm a smart person. I'll buy into it if I agree. And like, that's simply how I've approached this of like, well, why does God not accept homosexuality? Like, why is it written down so explicitly? And so then like, we have conversations on it and this is why. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'll still love my neighbors no matter who they sleep with, but God has his rules for a reason. And if you are struggling with that, then I would go to God about it, not me. And I think just like over time, you really understand that God invites these questions because he doesn't want us to live blindly or have blind faith. He wants us to walk in faith. And in order to do that, we need to have knowledge about what we're walking in. Was that your question?
Yes, that was my question, or an answer to my question. Again, I'm like, oh, I got like 50 things I want to ask. Um, the, yeah, the brilliance of bringing on people who, like, you're asking them to talk about the thing that they're so passionate about. And it's brilliant to do it with professors whose emails are public and they're easier to get to and they're not rock stars, but just the power. So what strikes me about everything you just said was how, imagine this. People respond well when you ask them questions from the right place in your heart. Like if I'm like a drunk expletive deleted and I come at that guy with those questions, this is not going to go well. They're not, but when you say, I have an honest question and I have an open heart about this, people respond well to that. So there's, you could have done Wait, But Why, could have been, there's a huge podcast. You could have done that. You could have done shows like that weren't on religion. And I think that strategy makes it sound too cold and calculating. That methodology of like, it's okay to ask, it's okay to not know is brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of like working out. Like, well, why does that workout work? Well, why should we eat that? Why shouldn't we eat that? Like, those are all honest questions that, at the end of the day, like will help you in your fitness journey. I think like the same rules apply here. And also, the people that I bring on, most of them disagree with each other. Like, I have found that like some of my like closest friends that are scholars, I'd be like, yeah, like young Earth, and isn't that crazy? The Earth is only 6,000 years old, and he's like, well, I don't believe that. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
and that's not a bad thing. That's totally okay. And I have to instead be like, see, all of it contradicts. I instead have to take the heart posture of like, how great is our God that if there was a single person that knew everything about God and was 100% correct, I would think I would call that person God. But
yeah. What haven't we done? Any parting? All right, now that we've done our warm up intro, any parting thoughts or anything top of mind at 39 minutes?
um, yeah, I don't know. What do you want? Like social media strategy? Like these are for
Um,
podcasters. So how can I help your audience?
yeah, I think I really think at this point people are gonna, if you want to know more, you're gonna have to go dig in, or we're gonna have to have another episode with Cassian. But give me your Instagram handle. We haven't mentioned that yet because people
Yeah.
who are interested in the actual topic will be like, "Wait, tell us more about how I can
Oh yeah.
follow Cassian." So tell me more about IG, and you're on TikTok too, I believe.
Yeah, my strategy was Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I took YouTube and TikTok for granted for sure. But I've been steadily posting on Instagram. I took like a month off last year and then I started doing it every single day, and like the results definitely show, but also integrated a bunch of like automations and like, funneling for that to like capture leads. But for Instagram, it's This Is Biblically Speaking. That's the handle. For I think TikTok, it's also This Is Biblically Speaking. And then on YouTube, it's just the Biblically Speaking podcast. So whichever one you can, subscribe, follow, because that helps me, especially, if you don't want to pay me, make YouTube pay me, and, let YouTube know that you like me. If you don't want to pay me, at least subscribe, because that helps. Let's see. Instagram is so much fun. I basically take like 30, 60, 90 seconds of each clip and I try to like introduce it and like hook it in a way where it's like, I wonder about this, you wonder about this. Like, church is cool, but like, when were the dinosaurs? I asked Dr. Robert Carter, and this is what he said. And then I show the clip of the podcast. And it's like, if you want the full clip, comment the word YouTube, and I'll send you my YouTube channel. And then you can watch the full conversation. And if you like it, subscribe. And so while it's very unlikely that most people go from short form to long form, it at least gives them that option. If they were like, oh my gosh, my child can't stop asking about dinosaurs and I'm trying to raise him in a Christian household, I'm just going to like put this on the TV. And then, oh my gosh, there's a one about timelines right after that. So I think it's a good way if like that's what the need is. But I feel like the people that I reach are typically like stay-at-home moms that want to raise their kids in a Christian household, or for some reason veteran fathers, like people, like men who are retired early to late 50s, who, somebody said this, it was like they must be at an age where they're willing to be vulnerable about what they don't know, rather than like kind of more stubborn about their beliefs. They're more like, I lived my whole life and I didn't know this, so I'm more open at this point. So maybe I might be not hitting the nail on the head there, but I think I read it somewhere on my analytics. But yeah, Instagram, I'm on it every day. I'm on it chronically in an addictive way. So if you ever want to just DM me there, I'm there.
Terrific. All right. Well, before we talk for 7 hours, thank you, Cassian, for taking the time. It was cool. I feel like well, I'll just take ownership. I feel like I really swerved all over the map on that one, but I think, I know people who will want, every time I talk to somebody, there are people I'm certain who go, I want more Meta, not the company, more, I want more about podcasting. And there are also people who are going to wait, get that person to talk more about their actual show topic. So today I was trying to go a little more into, let's talk a little bit about the actual material that you cover too.
Oh,
So
did
maybe
we do
people
that?
listening, yeah, we did that a little bit more than is normal for me. So if people are thinking, dude, you were all over the map, yeah, make your own show. And yeah, I was trying to cover a little more of the map. So anyway, all right. So thanks for taking the time. It was a real pleasure to
Thank
get a chance
you.
to chat again.
Thank you. This was so much fun.